Welcome to the milestone 25th Miami Jewish Film Festival, the world's largest film festival of its kind. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Mark Boranek. I am the Director of Congregational Engagement here at Temple Beth Shalom in Miami Beach, and I'm excited to be moderating a virtual conversation. I wish it were in person because I told our guests that I'd like to have a coffee with them, but they get a rain check for that. And I'm here with Director Eitan Wetzler and the star of the film, the writer, the producer, and you're going to hear all about her, Ilana Ben-Ezri Tevelov, who are with us tonight as we premiere this film, Guttman, this evening. And thank you all for joining us. It's really my pleasure to take us through this short interview. I got to watch the film, as all of you did, and there are a number of questions that I have. But first, I'd like to start by just having our guests introduce themselves and how they got to making the film itself. I know Ilana, you spoke about this was something very special for you to tell your parents' story. But how did the actual filming and the project begin, and the genesis of it?
Should Ilana talk or me?
Eitan, why don't you begin and then we'll move over to Ilana. That's fine.
Okay, fine. It all started with a phone call from Ilana that she heard about me and the fact that I'm making documentary films. And we met not far away from Binyamina, which is where Ilana lives, and I heard her story. It was a story about the family and a few other subjects that I didn't know much about. For example, the Anglo-Baltic kibbutz, which I didn't hear about before that, and even Israeli historian didn't hear much about it. And so it was very emotional for Ilana to tell the story. And I was trying in the beginning, the first meeting, just to catch how do you build a story from all this information that Ilana threw upon me. And then we met again, and slowly I could understand how these interesting stories can make one story that, and I suggested to Ilana to lead the story, to be in front of the camera, though she didn't like it so much. But I thought it was very important for her to be in the film, to tell the story from in her own words.
Very nice. Ilana, tell us about meeting Eitan, what it was like, and the beginnings of the project for you.
As a child, I dreamed about looking after Guttman, my only father's brother. And I only heard in my childhood that he disappeared in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. And as a child, I thought, I was sure that if he ran away, he will come back. And if he will not come back, I'll go and find him. And I couldn't. I went to Latvia 4 times, and I didn't have one paper about him. So I said to myself, okay, if I don't find Guttman, I may write my parents' story in Binyamina, in the Anglo-Baltican group. Wow, and it was so difficult, so I didn't know what to do with so many details. So I went to Eitan and I asked him to help me to gather all the pieces of my family story. It was difficult for me to speak. It was difficult to me to be in the front of the camera. But for my parents and for Guttman, I felt it's a great mission and great responsibility to do it. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Yamina.
Ilana. Eitan,
Thank you.
were there any difficulties in the actual filming of the project? Were there things that you came up against that you didn't expect? Were there any surprises in creating the film?
Not much difficulties, I wouldn't say. It just the first mission that I encountered was to put the pieces together and make a coherent film that doesn't deal with too many subjects. So this was my first and initial mission that I thought I didn't like to go sideways. I wanted to focus on the story, and but usually in my films I let things happen. The character of the film takes me to his path, and I just join. And this was important for me, just to follow Ilana and her wishes and the dream that she had. And by that time, she knew a lot when we started to make the film, but slowly and surely, many details added to the film. And it was sort of a research that Ilana took us to, and we met people and we heard their story. Ilana made a research before we were filming, and so much of the information was already known to Ilana, but with my help, we could go deeper into the information and try to understand how the whole story will come about.
Wonderful. Eitan, and I mentioned to you, I found the cinematography, I found the filming, when Ilana and some of her friends are walking near the old houses. I felt actually, walking on the footsteps with them, because the sound was clear, the picture was, the cinematography in the film really was terrific. So kol hakavod, as we say in Hebrew. Ilana, did you find any of the people that you had interviews with? I'm not talking about your friends and their parents, but the ones from the council, the ones from the cities. Did you find they were comfortable in speaking with you about the past, or did you feel any resistance at all?
They didn't like it. They didn't want me to dig in the history, because there are a lot of secrets still today, and they don't want me to know about it, to speak about it. And I insist to do it because Binyamina is going to be 100 anniversary next year, and I desire that this chapter will be part of the history of Binyamina. They still don't like it, but they know it's true.
Listen, it's as you say, Ilana, it's part of the history. It's part of what makes Binyamina today, is its past. And for me, and I think for everyone who watched the film, I think they learned about a period that many people are not familiar with, and that is that period, from the late 1920s to the establishment of the state of Israel. That era where Jews were coming from all over Europe, and they were trying to make inroads into communities. And then the whole issue of labor, which became such an important aspect, I think, of the film. Can you talk about that a little bit? When you learned about the issues that were with that had to do with the labor and finding the proper people and giving Arab labor over Jewish labor, how did you feel when you learned about that?
These people were survived. They dreamed a dream. They came to Israel after a Zionist dream. And they didn't even thought that life will be so difficult for them. What I found in Binyamina between 1922 to 1948, there were about 50 Zionist groups from all kinds, from the right and from the left, that were looking for work. They wanted to establish a state. They had so many difficulties because they had no work, and there was difficulties between Arab and Jewish labor. איתן, אני חושבת שאתה אולי תוכל להסביר את זה יותר טוב ממני. Maybe Eitan will...
Eitan, maybe you can make some further comments for those that didn't understand Hebrew. Ilana, that was good. Eitan? כל הכבוד, זה בסדר. Eitan.
Well, I think there are two issues that I could speak about. First of all, you know, there is this saying that history is written by the victor. And you know that Jews have these Zionist dream to come to Israel, but as you know, there are fractions in Zionism. Those the socialist and the, let's say, capitalist. And when the first Jews came to Israel in the 19th century, the Baron or the Rothschild would help them by buying some land and give it to these people who came 1882, sorry, the first Jews that came to Israel to work as farmers. And they already established farms, and the second Aliyah, or even the second Aliyah, was still these people that I was talking about, the first and the second Aliyah, but the third Aliyah were actually, Aliyah, I mean immigration, they came these people who came later on, they were told, you're not going to get any land anymore, but you could work for the farmers who got the land from Rothschild and other people that helped to build the farms in Israel, in Palestine, actually. So there was a rivalry between these people who came with this idea, socialist ideology, that everything has to be spared and everything has to be, all the lands belong to everyone and so on, these group, and the other groups that already established themselves in Israel, in Palestine, and they said, you know, this is our land, this is, we got this land by right, and now you could work for us. And the socialist people, for their own rights, said, okay, fine, we'll work for you, but we want an honest wage. And this, how it all came about, that the Arab settler, the Arab people who were in those times, they were willing to work for less salary than the Jews who came from Eastern Europe, and they had these ideals of socialist ideology, and that's it. That's how it all came to be a big rivalry between these two camps.
Thank you. Ilana, there were a few interviews that really stood out for me, a few of the people that you met with. One in particular was a young man who had such an amazing knowledge of Holocaust research. And when the one thing, something that stood out for me was when you asked him, why is this so important for you? Like, why do you want to, why do you need to know so much about the Holocaust? And when he said, you know, when it went beyond the family, he goes, he didn't really have an answer for you. The other one that I want you to talk about is the woman that you met in that beautiful home about Zichron Yaakov, and what a beautiful home she had. And I, you know, I know the real estate market in Zichron is booming these days. Too bad those people didn't hold on to their homes back from hundreds of years ago. Anyways, Ilana, tell us about the young man that was doing the research for Guttman.
When I realized that I will not have any more details than I have. One day I found in the Facebook a young man, a student that is looking for pictures from Lepaya Jews, the Jews of Lepaya. So I phoned him, and we decided to meet, and I told him about my family. And he said, okay, I'm going to try to look after Guttman. The name Guttman, he was my Guttman because he was looking and doing what I couldn't. He was looking on everywhere in the internet to look what happened, to search what happened to Guttman. And he found that Guttman didn't die on Latvia. All the Lepaya Jewish were sent to Stutthof. We speak to each other once a week, 2 weeks, and he's a wonderful person. I never met him before, but he's like my little son.
Wonderful. The gentleman that was in the wheelchair that you were asking about, that knew so much about the history of the community and how much he remembered, how is he today in 2021?
He passed away. He passed away 2 months ago. And for me, he was like a miracle because he spoke so much about Binyamina and about the social rights and everything. So there are a lot of things that Eitan filmed and is not in the series.
In the film, in the final product, right? And since you
Yes.
say that, Ilana, Eitan, as you did the editing of the film, is there anything that you left out that we should know about, that you were thinking about putting in, and for timing purposes or for whatever reasons, you know, is there a particular scene that wasn't included in the film that you can share?
I can think about one scene that we went to Kfar Blum, the kibbutz where Ilana used to go as a child for many years for her vacation, and there were two very nice women that shared with us their experience as children in the Anglo-Baltic kibbutz, and but somehow they didn't give us much information, and or information that is very vital to the film. That's something that I could. I was trying because it was very nice, warm atmosphere, but it was not. I didn't see that they add some information or anything to the film. So I left it out. But as a gesture, at the end of the film, we see like a few seconds of that meeting. So,
you know what, Eitan? I noticed that because I noticed when the film ended, and I thought the credits were coming up at the end, and then you showed one last, really, it was a sweet scene, that last maybe 5 or 10 seconds of that scene. So you got both in, you got it in at the end. You know, as we wrap up this interview, I want to ask you, Eitan, what's next for you as a filmmaker? Are there any projects coming up? Anything we need to look out for?
Absolutely. I'm working on two long film documentaries. One film is, as you might know, in 2 years, there'll be 50 years anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And I started to interview three tank people. How do you say? People who fought with tanks.
Right?
חיל
Yeah.
השריון.
Yeah, they were in the armored division.
Right, in the armored division in the Golan Heights. And actually, they prevented from the Syrian, this unit prevented from the Syrian to invade the Galilee. It was really, it was a war for life and death, because if the Syrian were able to go to the Kinneret, I don't know how this war would end. So they were actually saving that border. And so this is one film, and the other film is very different one. It's about two women. One is a social worker, and the other one is a woman that was hurt as a child sexually. And she's an amazing writer and singer. She's 25 years old, and she tells all about her her past and what she had to go through songs that she sings in front of an audience. So it's really very emotional film, and I hope these two films somehow find a way to get to you.
Wonderful. Eitan, I wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to seeing those films. I do, especially. Ilana, one of the things as we really wrap this up, my last question for you is this. I loved seeing the piece about your family. I love the, everything tied up near the end where they showed your kids and your grandchildren. It was a beautiful, those family pictures. How did it feel to have your whole family with you for the end of the project?
I think I don't know what to say, because my family, we live together in one big garden, piece of land. It makes me to appreciate what I have. It makes me to love every piece or every minute in my life. I have a nice family, and thanks for them, I did the film. I could make it. I wish I could have a bigger family. I wish my family in England would be here. But everything is okay now. The film made me feel shlema.
It fulfilled you. It fulfilled you, and I see that in the film. And even though your search for Guttman was unsuccessful, there seemed to be a completion for you, a feeling of fulfillment by the end, and it came across in the film. So I want to thank you, because I told you both when we spoke earlier, Binyamina today is this hub for transportation. It's a cool community now. The train goes right through there when you go up to the north. Binyamina, as you said, is celebrating its centennial year, its 100th year this coming year. And so for me and for everyone who watched the film, it was educational. It was moving. It was even suspenseful when we learned about, Borko's dad and what happened. It was like a surprise as the film proceeds. So I want to just say to Eitan, to Ilana, I want to thank you both for this film, for giving this to the Miami Jewish Film Festival. And I want to thank again all of our members, our sponsors, our community partners, our volunteers, and all of you film lovers for participating in this milestone 25th Miami Jewish Film Festival. Thank you all, and we appreciate everyone being here with us today. Thank you.